So, hey, how are you guys doing?
Good, good. Yeah.
I'm Jason Michael Perry, the man with three first names, and also the director of training at Fig Leaf Software. So, I'm going to try and keep this a bit more technical in nature. So I have a bit of code that I'm running through. I've already kind of cut and pasted together, so that way I can avoid typing and hopefully any issues. But just some quick things beforehand. Just so you guys know, we have a BYOL, Bring Your Own Laptop, 3-hour Sencha Touch course going on in DC. I don't remember the exact date. Let's see. Yeah, it's November 16th. So if you guys are interested, it's a 3-hour course, and it's going to be kind of a quick deep dive into Sencha Touch. Just so if you're interested. One of the things that we're lucky to be is a Sencha partner, and we also provide consulting as well as training services with Sencha. And if you take one of our courses, you get a chance to build our wonderful Crime Finder application that you build throughout the course. And this just gives you an idea of what Sencha feels like. Now, this is it running through a browser, and this is it in the iPhone simulator. Just nice and tiny here. So if I plop in an address, so you can find out just how awesome crime is in the DC area. So I know that's probably why we're all out here, right? Trying to avoid it. So, as you can see, right over here by our Fig Leaf offices on 1416th Northwest, these are some of the crimes that happened in a few years. I think this is all from 2005 to 2008, and this is the Google Maps integration. You can pop over here and actually take a look at the events, and here you're actually seeing that, well, you don't want to park near our office because there's a lot of auto theft that goes on, and this data is all being pulled in live. We can also do a sort based on date or time. And in this case, we also have the Sencha charts framework that's been pulled in here. So here we have this nice little chart piece that also allows you to pop up a legend. Come on, yeah. And you can actually turn off different parts of the legend if you want to, and go back to the chart, so we can see that there are not nearly as many homicides as robbery, which is a good sign. We have the feeds being pulled in here. This is the FBI's missing kids list, and also we have the top 10 fugitives and the top 10 terrorists. And again, all of this is Sencha Touch based. We also have the media framework, which this is a video that's playing. Yeah, very awesome, very exciting. All playing with the media framework. And then, of course, the last piece, which is part of our unit of forms, which is the confess form, which allows you to, admit the fact that you were jaywalking, littering, speeding, or whatever it is that, it was that you're doing. So, just in case you want to. So, obviously, this is all very, very crime-centric. Now, as you guys probably know, the awesome thing about Sencha is that Sencha Touch is a JavaScript framework, and based on that, it's really easy to port it to whatever platform it is that you want. So this works, be it on Android, BlackBerry, whatever the device is. Historically, you've actually used PhoneGap as your mechanism for taking this as a JavaScript-based application that runs via the web browser, and then also distributing it as a physical application that will run on the device. Now, it's great for enterprise-based applications. This is, of course, not necessarily the framework you want to look at if you're hoping to build the next best game. But for enterprise-based apps that use lists and forms and those types of interfaces, this is perfect. And as you can see, it really feels and interacts just like you'd expect, with all of the nice touch features. And if you look at the missing kids list, we even have the alpha listing here. So these interface elements work and feel just like you'd expect them on whatever the device is, be it iOS or Android. Cool. So what I have here, I think I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit. So I have Coda, which I'm using. In our courses, we usually use Aptana Studio, but I like Coda. Coda is my JavaScript editor of choice on the Mac. And this is the most basic application that you possibly built with Sencha Touch. This is a wonderful Hello World, which I'm sure all of you guys have done at some point in your time. Now, the basic requirements, so that we actually include here the Sencha Touch style sheet, which is all the CSS necessary for the styling of the built-in Sencha components. And on top of that, I'm also including the Sencha Touch JavaScript engine. So this is the full framework that's being pulled in. Now, in my case, I have the debug versions that I'm using here. I'm sure any of you have worked with jQuery or any of the JavaScript frameworks are pretty familiar with the fact that The compiled, compressed JS versions are really painful to debug because it looks like someone just vomited gibberish onto the screen essentially. So the debug versions gives us something that's actually spelled out. It's a bigger file size, but it makes it easier for us to see what's going on if we need to check through things. And here I have my base JavaScript, and this is all that's required if we're building our Sencha-based application. Now, we start off with x.setup, and just in case you're curious, the X is also the JavaScript framework that Sencha makes. This is the more desktop web-based interface, whereas Sencha Touch is the iOS, Android-based development environment. So our X setup call here, which is all JavaScript-based, takes a few different calls. First of all, tablet startup screen and the phone startup screen. These only work if you're actually compiling this via PhoneGap, but as you guys may note, when your application starts up, you usually get a quick splash screen that pops up while the application is loading. This is what screen or PNG you want to use for that. We also have the icon. This icon is the icon that will be used if you actually distribute this using PhoneGap. And it's also used if someone bookmarks your app to the desktop or whatever you want to call it, the main screen of the iOS application. If you work with Objective-C at all, you note that in your settings, you get a chance to say glass on icon, that little glossy look that the icons add automatically. If you want a matte feel to it, then you turn that off by just saying it's false, and that would give you the normal icon look. Now, after you set all that information, you have the onReady function. The onReady function is called as soon as the application is ready to actually start up. And this is where you do all your heavy lifting. At a minimum, all you need to do is provide a component, some kind of UI element, that will be the main element that's displayed to the user. In my case here, I've gone ahead and set this main panel instance and said that it's going to display HTML text as hello world. Okay? So I think I have this preloaded in my browser. So there she is right now. I know. It's exciting stuff, and I promise you it gets a lot more interesting. Okay? So yes, hello world. So we're there at that point now. Now, this is a MVC-based environment, so when we get ready to build applications, we have essentially three pieces we need to do. We need to define a model, which actually provides a structure for whatever data is that we're expecting to get back. We provide something called a store, which actually stores the data and provides a mechanism for getting the data from some remote source. And then we have to provide a view that will be populated with whatever data it is that we're going to receive. So, in the name of copy and paste, I've already created a model, and I'm going to plop into my sample app here. So above my main panel, I'm going to go ahead and define a model. So I've registered this model and given it a name. I'm calling it Missing Kids. And here I'm defining the different fields that this model is going to have. In a moment, I'll show you guys the data that's coming back. Because we're working in JavaScript, the best mechanism for us to use is JSON or JSON-P, which I love because, I'm Jason Perry, so JSON-P. It kind of works for me. You can also use XML and AJAX if you prefer. That works just as easily, but JSON, being that it already is JavaScript, you're going to find it's going to be a bit faster and it's going to be consumed easier by the browser. Okay? So my JSON data is broken up into these different elements. So I have the title, the first name, the last name, the description, the photo, and I'm also specifying the different types that this data is. Your model would allow you to also specify validators and validation information to make sure that your model data, as you add information to it or get data back from the server, is indeed valid. But this is where we say the structure of whatever information is that we expect to get back. Okay? Now the model actually tells us what a singular object will look like. But ultimately, when you use Sencha to pull that in, we define a store. The store is the thing that's responsible for two things: storing whatever data that's been received, either locally or from the remote server, however it's coming back in, and also specifying where it's going to get that data. So, copy and paste element number 2 is my X data store here. It's a whole lot easier than when I was typing it earlier. All right. So, the data store specifies whatever model is going to be used for the data that gets populated in. Okay, so this is letting me know that the model that I've defined is going to also represent the singular objects that will ultimately populate the store. Cool. I've given the store an instance name, but you can also specify a store ID. The instance name is my way of using this object locally, but if I use the store ID, I can go and pull this information in remotely at a later point in time. So or just from any point in my code, if you have code that gets really crazy, as happens with this JavaScript interface, You may want to get this and you don't know where it is. You can't access that instance. You can just ask for the store with this particular ID. Does that make sense? Next is the proxy. The proxy specifies where the remote data is and how it's actually going to get fed into this application. In my case here, I'm using JSON-P. And I'm using JSON-P because my data is stored at a remote location. So I have to use a script tag or some mechanism. Now, I'll get to that in a moment. But this could also just be a regular old AJAX call where we just load that data in from wherever the location is, be it local or remote. So this path here is a CFC, CodeFusion component that's built on the back end that we're using for this course. And I actually think I have it loaded up already. Right here. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. That's my beautiful JSON-P data here. Now, this is using JSON-P. So if you look at it, I know it's a whole lot of stuff because there's some HTML embedded inside of this. I have another one that's actually a little bit easier to look at. This is just crime information that's happened in a certain proximity. And you can see that based on it being JSON, I have square braces, which means this is an array of multiple objects. And I have my curly brace notation, which is curly brace name colon value comma name colon value. So these are the different items that represent the objects I'm getting back. And these objects are all based in an array.